Hey y'all, before we hop into this episode of The Great American Scream, I wanted to let you know that we have launched our Patreon officially at patreon.com/greatscreampod. We have some great tiers of rewards, including early access to episodes, voting on episode topics, and chatting with us in live streams. So go check it out. Once again, that is patreon.com/greatscreampod.
This is a show about getting spooked for fun, and neither one of the hosts are associated with the attractions discussed in any way, except for those skeletons in Devin's closet. Some topics may go from ghoulish to ghastly, so viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to The Great American Scream.
Adam, I have a very important question for you that our entire friendship hinges upon it.
I thought after the zombie episode, when I told you that zombies are fast zombies, we already weren't friends. Am I going to redeem myself, or is this going to push me further down the non-friendship hole?
Well, let's just assume that when the podcast ends, if there's another episode the next week, we're like reset to zero.
Okay.
And we're good. My question is this.
Yeah.
If I came to you and said, Adam, I'm dying, oh darn, oh dang, can you reanimate me and put screws in my neck and turn me into a cool, sick monster? Would you do it for me? Now, yes.
I would.
Answer
now,
yes.
I have a follow-up question. Is the screws in your neck part of the reanimation process, or just something cosmetically that you would want?
I just think it'll look sick.
Okay. Yeah. Because then because as far as reanimation goes, I don't think the bolts will do anything. But if you want that, I can make it happen.
Right. I'm expecting you to use the Rinne Rebirth jutsu from Naruto.
Oh, okay.
And sacrifice another soul to bring me back. But I just want cool screws in my neck, just like my good friend Frankenstein, monster.
Okay. Yeah. And hello, welcome to The Great American Scream.
My name's Devin Wright.
My name's Adam O'Connell. And before everybody gets touchy with us, yes, throughout this episode, we are going to be talking about the character of Frankenstein's monster, not the doctor. But hey, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody calls him Frankenstein. It's going to be okay. We're going to use them interchangeably. We know the difference between Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster.
We all know it's 2020. Words belong to the people who use them. We can just say Frankenstein. It's okay.
Yeah. And also, he's a lot more deserving of a cool name than the doctor is. So
yeah, take that name.
Yeah, reclaim it. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. The doctor is the real monster. We're going to call him Frankenstein. But let's talk about Frankenstein's monster, because I think he's perhaps the most iconic Universal classic monster. He's like maybe not the most popular, but he's the first thing I think of when I think of a Universal classic monster.
That's interesting. I think that in the creation of this podcast, I kind of rediscovered the fact that Universal classic monsters are like a property that exists. But I would not be surprised if Frankenstein was the most well-known of the monsters.
I feel
of
like
the monsters.
In the lore of this like Space Jam Universal Classic Monsters team, I feel like he's the leader. I feel like he's in charge.
The leader. What position does he play as the leader of basketball? As you would obviously know, and I definitely know. And I'm quizzing you now.
Forward.
Quarterback. Okay.
Is forward a real basketball position?
I think so.
Do they call them positions?
Yeah. What else would they call them?
I don't know. I feel like there's another word for them.
Roles? Jobs?
Anyway.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah. So Frankenstein, he doesn't have like cool powers like Dracula or the Mummy, nor was he the first classic monster, because that was technically the Phantom of the Opera, even though most people don't consider him a classic monster. Right. But he still was one of the scariest things to come out of the 1930s. People were absolutely terrified of him. And as an adult, I don't think of Frankenstein as scary, especially because he's played so like sympathetically now. However, when I was a child, upstate New York gang, I used to go on vacations to Lake George. And
we've all been there.
There's this amazing place in Lake George called the House of Frankenstein Wax Museum. But there was a man outside who was dressed as Frankenstein. And for the whole week I was there, I was absolutely petrified of him and would not walk on that side of the street where I knew the Frankenstein Museum was, because I was so scared of him. Oh my God. And the whole trip, my parents tried to tell me he was nice. And I think he even like caught on and like would try and wave hello to me. And I was not having it. And one day I'll return to Lake George to make amends with this Frankenstein.
Yeah, this sounds like a special segment that we have to film, a documentary of you going to make amends with the Lake George Frankenstein.
Yeah, if you're out there, Lake George Frankenstein, I'm sorry. I bet you're lovely.
My version of that was the genie at Disney. I just didn't want to. I wasn't about it.
I get that. He's got an odd shape to him.
He's very large, imposing even.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is we talked about this with zombies and with vampires, that we as a society have started to like sympathize with villains way more, or at least with the like monster type villains. And I would say Frankenstein's kind of the first one of that. Like, he's an absolute, like pitying him. Yeah. And that Mary Shelley probably wanted that. Like,
exactly.
Because it is intrinsic in the fiction that we're supposed to pity him in some way.
Exactly. And that's kind of his very origins lend him to being this kind of sympathetic character, even though as like the classic monsters franchise, as it were, moved on, he then just kind of became a horror icon like the rest of them are. He was originally written as a sympathetic monster. So let's go back to Mary Shelley, inventor of science fiction. Please. My personal mother
my
of
mom
all goths.
And yours.
Yeah. If you're goth, Mary Shelley is your mom.
There are two mothers of the Great American Scream, Mary Shelley and Tara Curtis.
Yeah. On the weekdays, I'm at Tara Curtis's house, and on the weekends, I get to go to Mary Shelley's.
There's a very large legal battle. It got kind of messy, but they're still friendly.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So Frankenstein, 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupts and launches Europe, Asia, and the east coast of America into the 1816 year without a summer.
You taking us back.
Yeah.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah. So this year without a summer, volcanic ash from the eruption polluted the air, and the warm farming season never came and killed all the crops.
Volcanic winter.
Yes, it was a volcanic winter. So Mary Shelley and her lover at the time, Percy Byron Shelley, along with their 1-year-old daughter and Mary's sister, who was pregnant by Lord Byron, was also there.
No, okay.
So people in this house.
So we got 4 people.
Yes, and
Mary
one
Shelley,
of them is a 1-year. Well, 4 people and a 1-year-old baby.
And a baby.
Okay. Yes.
So we got Mary, Percy, Mary's sister. Nobody knows her name, and Lord Byron. Yeah. First name Lord.
Yeah.
Last name Byron.
Who had gotten Mary's sister pregnant. So there's another baby coming, but
so there are 2 babies, one inside of a person.
Yes.
And the other one is out.
Yes. So they all go together to a vacation in a cottage in Lake Geneva, Switzerland, where they would go for their summers, but the weather sucked, so they couldn't do their like outdoor merriment activities. So they're stuck inside, and Byron, Percy, and Mary decide to tell scary stories to each other out of this book they had. And then Lord Byron goes, LOL, I bet none of us could write a better scary story than these. And so they decided to have a contest to see who could write the best ghost story. And Mary Shelley writes Frankenstein.
She goes, hold my whatever cliche thing that we say. I'm going to write one of the, like, I'm going to invent a new genre.
I'm going to invent the genre
while I'm at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even remember. Well, I didn't even put in the outline whatever Lord Byron and Percy Shelley wrote.
Yeah, who the hell cares?
She wrote Frankenstein. So if you're not familiar with the OG Frankenstein story, which was published in 1818 as Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, referring to...
Great name,
referring to the doctor as the Modern Prometheus, because I think people get confused. But so it follows...
Right, which does confuse the we'll talk about Victor Frankenstein, not a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, Prometheus is kind of a tragic hero in Greek mythology, but that it just... From the jump, Mary Shelley, you're such a genius, to be like, the modern Prometheus would not be good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Mary Shelley. Okay, keep going. We can't spend this much time on...
The story follows Victor Frankenstein, an Italian-Swiss scientist and student of the University of Ingolstadt, who becomes obsessed with alchemy and finding the elixir of life, and marries that practice with the practice of science by creating a living being stitched together from corpses. He is horrified by what he creates because he intended it for it to be beautiful, and it turns out that it is not, and abandons
very much
it.
Not.
And abandons it, so the creature is left to fend for himself to discover where he came from and why he exists, and then ultimately confront his creator who brought him onto this earth without his consent.
again, what a baller ass premise, Mary.
Absolutely. So
Adam, I don't even have any commentary. It's just so good.
So in the book, the creature / he's referred to like the creature, the monster, the demon, there's a lot of things. But so this creature / monster looks way different than the Frankenstein we think of today. And we'll get into why that is. But in the original story, he's 8 feet tall with extremely thin yellow skin that said you can see his like veins and muscles under it because it's stretched so thin. Long flowing black hair. They specifically call it flowing. Very white teeth, white watery eyes, and black lips.
And this was supposed to be scary.
A monster.
Not very attractive.
No, very scary.
Not very attractive and desirable and wanted by all of us, including me and you, the host of this podcast. This sounds like my dream man.
He also, by the end of the novel, is intelligent, coherent, and educated, and is able to carry out full conversations, and I think can write, but I might be misremembering that. While the Frankenstein we kind of know of doesn't really achieve. He's still kind of in this like grunting.
Right. Yeah, he kind
state.
of becomes mixed with zombie-ness in that he can be kind of lethargic and stupid, or at least oafish, which is really interesting, again, when we talk about the like link to the Prometheus story of like, there's a really interesting modernist idea of like bringing something to life without its consent and if that's okay. And yet even being brought back to life or to life without his consent, he still goes on to be like any other human on some sort of quest for knowledge and ability that we all like aspire to. It's cool.
Exactly. So of course we all call him Frankenstein, but he's never really given a name. I think in some like other adaptions, they try and name the creature. Sometimes they call him Adam because he's like the first man stuff.
Yeah, and let's be honest, I mean, it was a random summer at Lake Geneva. She already came up with the name Frankenstein. Yeah. You can't be like, name your monster too.
Frankenstein's really already perfect. I already got one.
Yeah.
So, and the reason that we all mistakenly refer to him as Frankenstein is because everyone did that after the Boris Karloff film, which we'll get to. But even still, he was not billed. Like he was billed in the film, but he was filmed as a question or billed as a question mark or like a ... So they didn't call him that in it
also,
either.
That is a great name for Frankenstein. Just call him ... or call him question mark or call him ellipses. Like that's so good.
So the book was obviously massively popular, and during the advent of silent film around a century after the book was released, we got to see the first adaptation in 1910. Edison Studios, Thomas Edison, his personal film studio.
Bad dude, but yeah.
Produced Frankenstein, the first ever adaptation of the book. It was 16 minutes long and was believed to be lost until the 1980s when a Wisconsin film collector found it in his collection, having no idea how rare it was.
Because it was just bad. He was like, yeah, it's just a random, I don't know. It was just I found one of these tubes and I saw it and I was like, some college kid made a shitty Frankenstein thing. Turns out Thomas Edison.
Yeah, the company deliberately tried to make it less about the macabre and more about the mysticism as to not like repulse audiences, although it kind of didn't work. In the movie, Frankenstein chemically creates the creature in a vat, and the creature haunts him until his wedding night when he and his fiancée make it disappear with the power of love. Okay. I think they cite it, like that's not me like they cite it as the power of love.
Okay. Yeah.
It was preserved.
They make him like the Joker. They put him in a vat of acid and they're like, here's my man. And also now you're gone, power love. Adam, I'm not hot on this Thomas Edison guy. I'm not, I don't like to hate on movies, but I'm going to give this one out of 5 stars.
If you're interested in giving your own personal review, it was preserved by the Library of Congress and the whole thing is on YouTube now. If you like silent movies, I think it's fun just to see how very old it is. Like this is a 110-year-old movie just on YouTube.
Yeah.
Imagine if you showed Thomas Edison his Frankenstein movie, but on YouTube. Like you pulled out he would explode.
You scroll down and the comment is like, why no words?
He would explode. Like he can't fathom it.
Well, We did say at the beginning of this podcast that we launched our Patreon. Maybe we're just going to watch this silent version of Frankenstein on this one.
We'll provide what the dialogue should have been.
That's a great idea. That's
Trademark.
actually a really good idea.
Trademark.
Trademark.
So we really started
like a
cooking.
Whose Line sketch.
Yeah. We really started cooking with gas with the 1931 film, the Boris Karloff film, which was the first adaptation with sound. Now, the monster's design in this movie, which is so iconic to what we think Frankenstein's monster to be, was created by Jack Pierce. Guess who's back? Back again. Jack Pierce.
Jack Pierce. Your friend and mine.
So fun fact, Bela Lugosi, more famously Dracula, was actually supposed to play the monster in this movie, but left the project after makeup tests. Now, he and Jack Pierce did not get along. I think we talked about in the Vampires episode how
I believe so, yeah.
Bela wanted to do his own makeup for Dracula rather, and Jack Pierce hated that, but Bela Lugosi won. So he and Jack Pierce didn't get along. So many suspect it was because of creative disagreements with the makeup design and the fact that Lugosi signed on because he thought he was going to play the Doctor.
See, got called by his agent. His agent said, they want you to play Frankenstein. And he was like, hell yeah. I love that crazy doctor. Wow.
But he was cast as the monster. However, this may have be because of a script difference. In the original version of the film, the one that was pitched to Bela Lugosi, the monster was a mindless killing machine instead of the sympathetic and misunderstood creature we know him to be now. And Lugosi didn't agree with that characterization, which I think is a good call.
Yeah.
So Boris Karloff was one of the few actors that Jack Pierce really got along with. He kind of had a reputation of having a short temper with actors, which understandable.
So not your friend or mine.
Yeah. But he got along really well with Boris Karloff, and they cooperated together on the design of Frankenstein's makeup. The whole look took 4 hours to complete every day, and Karloff removed one of his dental plates to make an indentation on the side of his face for this look. The head was built up from scratch every day using cotton, collodion, and spirit gum. And green grease paint was used to make him look pale and corpse-like on screen. This is why we think of Frankenstein's monster as green, because in all of the posters and the colorizations that came out, he was green. People go,
yeah, makes sense.
He's supposed to be green, but really they only did it so he would kind of look pale and corpse-like
on the black and white film.
Which is what they did with a lot of creature designs and just movie makeup in general in black and white films. So if you ever look at colorizations of like people filming black and white films, everyone looks insane because you had to have very specific colors of grease paint on to appear certain ways on screen.
Right. And if you're interested in that kind of makeup stuff, we did do an episode called Creature Feature a few months back. That is very good.
Yeah. And then so Pierce and Karloff would go on to work together again in The Mummy in 1932, where they also collaborated on the makeup design. Now, Frankenstein, the first film, the film was pre-code, but there were still some controversial scenes. The one where the monster is playing with the little girl and then throws her into a lake because he thinks he's playing and accidentally drowns her was labeled as one of the most controversial.
Very Lenny.
Yeah, as well as lines mentioning. Now, they changed his name in the film from Victor Frankenstein to Henry Frankenstein. I don't know why, but they did.
Maybe they were very, this was the 1930s. They were like, screw the Germans. We don't like it. And also they also wanted to link him to Henry Ford because everybody hated that guy.
Yeah. But so any lines mentioning his God complex were also controversial. That's one of the things that got removed when the Hays Code came into effect. And the state of Kansas requested that 32 scenes were cut from the theatrical release, which was literally over half the film. And the film was also banned in Ireland for the first month of release, but then went on to be released after, I guess, whatever the FCC of Ireland at the time deemed it appropriate.
You know, it's really interesting to look back at a piece of work that I don't think anybody today would consider controversial, like really in any way, not even like scary or like problematic, like even a monster throwing a little girl into a lake and like accidentally drowning her. That's like, that seems like an impactful scene that like makes sense in this story and that wouldn't get dinged by like the Motion Picture Association. But to think about the time that the world was in 1930, whatever, that they were like, oh, this guy's playing God. We don't want that. Like how radical a piece of literature could have been in the 1800s, and then when it was adapted into film, continue to be that controversial. Just again, Mary Shelley doing the Lord's work, Mary.
And what's interesting, I think, the most about the Universal Classic Monsters is like they were the Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface of their time. And like nowadays, we think of those Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, those kind of slasher killers as being not appropriate for children. And the Universal Classic Monsters almost get designated as like these are the monsters that are for kids. Like whenever we see like kids Halloween media, and there's always characters dressed as Dracula and Frankenstein and mummies and stuff because they're deemed as child appropriate and things that kids if kids want to be scared, they can do that.
Yeah, and almost sanitized from a horror perspective over decades and decades. And not only was it sanitized from a horror standpoint, but it also, in some ways, and we talked about this with zombies and vampires, sanitized the actual artistic intent of the monsters as well. When we talk about vampires and zombies, it's a bit harder to pin down just because they're such more widely influenced by many different pieces of media. But with Frankenstein, we know where it came from.
Yeah.
Right. We know what Mary Shelley was writing about. The thing was called The Modern Prometheus. We know that she is playing with these ideas. And so it's very obvious how fully like washed away the artistic intent of a character like Frankenstein is today.
Yeah, absolutely. But the film itself in 1931 was an absolute smash hit, regardless of censorship, having grossed $1.4 million in the box office. And that's 1931 money. In 2020 money, that's about $24 million.
Yeah, I mean, comparatively to the size of the movie industry,
exactly.
A smash hit.
And it cost $262,000 to make, which again, then in 2020 money is $4.5 million. So really, it's the profit
that's a cheap movie. Yeah,
yeah, it's the profit that we're talking about. They made a ton of money on this movie, and people were absolutely terrified of it, with many audience members reportedly having nightmares for weeks following seeing it. Because at this point, this was one of the scariest, this and Dracula, which came out the same year, were some of the scariest things ever to appear on a movie screen.
Oh, yeah. And when we talk about the kind of methods that people were using to like make their skin look like otherworldly, that really hits people when they're sitting in a theater for, probably the less than 10th time in their life.
Yeah.
And they're like, that man doesn't look real, but he's moving and he's a person, and that's scary. Don't like it.
Yeah, and yet it still painted the monster as a sympathetic creature, misunderstood and unsure of how the world works or why he exists. And by the end of the film, he's trapped inside a burning windmill set ablaze by angry villagers. Yeah, about the second... the whole second, like two-thirds of this movie kind of just goes off the rail of the original plot. There haven't been a lot of Frankenstein adaptations that are 100% true to the book.
Right.
They kind of just take the first third and then go, and then we'll figure out what happens after that.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of property where people just want to reinterpret it. Like it's one of those things where somebody goes, I have a good idea for Frankenstein.
Yeah. And so it went on to spawn several sequels throughout the 1930s and 40s, including 1935's Bride of Frankenstein, which is my second favorite classic monsters film behind Dracula, starring Elsa Lanchester as the monster's bride and containing one of my favorite classic horror lines of all time, which is in the final, spoiler alert, the final scene of the movie when it's the doctor and Elizabeth, if her name is Elizabeth at that point, is then in the lab with the bride and the monster, and then there's like another doctor too, and he's like the evil doctor, and the monster lets Frankenstein and his girlfriend go free, and then points to the evil doctor and goes, "Not you, we belong dead," and then flips a switch and it destroys the entire lab, destroying him, the monster, and the bride. Oh, it's so good. And then this was followed by Son of Frankenstein in 1939, which is first to introduce the character of Igor, who is not present at all in the book or the original film. But Igor in this film, played by Bela Lugosi. This was Karloff's last appearance as the monster in the film. And the franchise after this kind of went into the B-movie genre, which made sense for most of the classic monster films.
Yeah.
Following this was The Ghosts of Frankenstein in 1942, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. Lon Chaney Jr. as the monster, followed by Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman starring Lugosi as the monster and then Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman.
They were just a group of guys being like, hey, you want to take my role this time?
Yeah,
Okay,
you want to try on my
around.
costume now? And then House of Frankenstein in 1944 and House of Dracula in 1945, where Boris Karloff returned to play the Doctor.
Yes. Reunion, baby.
Yeah. And of course, this franchise technically caps off with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948, in which the monster was not played by Boris Karloff, but was trained by Boris Karloff so that he'd be able to play the monster, I guess, to the best of his ability correctly. So Frankenstein in general has been less adapted than his compatriot Dracula.
Very sad.
But still has a pretty wide film catalog. Especially there have been a ton of wild B movies, either using the Frankenstein character or just the name Frankenstein, including I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, Frankenstein's Daughter, Frankenstein Meets the Space Monster, Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Wait, why does Jesse James meet his daughter and not him?
We met his daughter in the movie beforehand. And now Jesse James gets to meet her.
But why? Okay, sure.
Yeah. We also get Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, of course, which is an adaptation of the Frankenstein story, but it's also kind of a sequel because it's about the doctor's family coming and returning and trying to get rid of take away the shame from the family name, but just does all the same stuff. And in which the monster performs a musical rendition of Putting on the Ritz.
Putting on the Ritz, baby.
Great, excellent Halloween movie. Great musical. Go watch Young Frankenstein if you haven't this season. And now Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is technically a Frankenstein adaptation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, people only look. Because here's the thing too about Frankenstein. I think we've gotten so used to the Frankenstein story that we don't even realize when we're watching adaptions anymore. Like we don't even think back to the source material anymore.
I mean, sure, Adam, but the doctor's name is Dr. Frankenfurter. It's literally a joke of putting Frankenstein together with a beef wiener.
Yeah, I know, but we know that it's a Frankenstein adaptation, but we're not thinking about it when we watch the movie.
I'm with you. It's it seems like there a lot of audiences are like, oh, they were just doing a joke with the name.
Exactly. It was kind of like people treated it as a parody of Frankenstein.
Right.
But I think it's more of an adaptation of Frankenstein.
Yeah, an adaptation for sure.
There's also an often forgotten 1994 adaptation starring Robert De Niro as the monster and Kenneth Branagh as Victor and Helena Bonham Carter as Elizabeth.
Yeah, we should talk about that one more.
Yeah. I've never seen this. I actually had never heard of it until Let's
watch that.
Yeah, I know. I hope it's good. Like, I hope I'm not about to Google it.
I hope it's so bad.
But I trust Kenneth Branagh.
That's a hard sentence for me to jive with. I'm sorry, Kenneth Branagh, if you're listening to this 5 years from now when we're in a movie together or whatever.
I trust Helena Bonham Carter.
That's a hard one too. I trust Helena Bonham Carter 99% of the time.
Okay. All right. But
she was really good in the adaptation of Twelfth Night. She's great.
Yeah. Guillermo del Toro has been trying to do a remake since 2009 starring Doug Jones as the monster, to which I say,
do it.
Please, God. He'd be perfect.
And like, Shape of Water is a play on the same.
It's Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like Doug Jones.
Right. It's Creature.
Yeah. You don't even have to give Doug Jones a script. He knows exactly what he's going to come on and do.
Right. And I feel like Guillermo del Toro will not only like actually adapt the novel, but be possibly one of the best people in today's world to adapt the ideas of it, if that makes sense. Like I was saying before, like he knows what Mary Shelley was trying to do, you know, but also like maybe let a woman direct it. That
too. But I'm good with Doug Jones playing the monster.
Oh, sure.
Doug Jones would absolutely rock it. And the Universal, what's it called? The Dark Universe?
The Universal Classic Dark Cinema Monsters universe of cinematic Universal Classic Monsters universe.
If it continues, which I hope it does, even though The Mummy was bad, we can still do it, everybody.
we already planned this. We're throwing out that mummy. We're bringing the old mummy back.
Yeah, just
into the new
that
canon.
one's not even that old. Just include it. Just say, oh, never mind. It's the Brendan Fraser mummy.
Yeah.
But if it goes forward, apparently wants to do a version with Javier Bardem as the monster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Leaning into the sexiness of him.
That was my first thought too, is that I know that we're trying to make Frankenstein's monster sympathetic, but do we need to make him sexy? This is a genuine question.
Well, if we want to be faithful to the novel, then yes.
Then yes. He's 8 feet tall with long flowing black hair and very sexy.
Very, very sexy.
Because I feel like Dracula has kind of got the real estate on being like the sexy class, like in the boy band that is the Universal Classic Monsters. Dracula is the sexy one, and I feel like he would get mad about Frankenstein stepping on his turf.
No, but I feel like it's a 90s boy band thing where like you're either somebody who, you know, if you're really into Dracula, that's fine. But if you're like, oh no, he's too much of a pretty boy, then you like Frankenstein because he's like the dark.
That's what I'm thinking.
Like, because Dracula's pretty dark.
Yeah,
they're all pretty dark. They're monsters.
Yeah,
but he's like a sultry, like sexual guy.
Yeah, I feel like Frankenstein's sensitive.
Exactly, and Frankenstein has the harsher exterior but the softer inside. You know?
Yeah. Like I feel definitely the Dracula's the one that all the normies. Like he's the popular one, and then Frankenstein. Those are the ones that are like, oh, I'm not that into Dracula, but Frankenstein.
Frankenstein's so nice, and then everybody who likes Frankenstein gets made fun of for being like overly edgy. But actually, Frankenstein's a better vocalist than all the other people, and the fact that we've been ignoring it for 5 albums is honestly annoying.
I think the Wolfman would be the best vocalist of this group, personally,
because he howls.
Because he do.
Yeah, you do be howling.
That was just my gut feeling was that the Wolfman.
I feel okay. Wait. So go through them with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's in this boy band?
It's okay. Are we going by the regular, like who's considered the classic monsters?
I don't know. It's your thing.
Okay.
This is our mythos.
Definitely Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, yes. Bride of Frankenstein.
Oh, she's in it.
She's in it. Was that 5?
Like, is Zombie in there?
Zombie's not in there. Zombie's not a classic monster. I would put in the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Mummy.
All right.
I would potentially open a spot for the Phantom of the Opera.
I was going to ask about the Phantom of the Opera. That's an interesting one. That's something we can talk about. But I feel like
because he lends himself to being in this singing group. Like
but I feel like he was maybe involved when the band was in its infancy, like was just a corporate entity that was being created. But then they realized that he had a really solid solo career that he could have.
Yes,
and so he went
did go
off
on
to Broadway.
Kind of a Harry Styles situation where he's
kind of a Harry Styles situation.
And I feel like the problem with this of all these fans thirsting over Frankenstein is that Frankenstein and the Bride are obviously involved. And I feel like the bride would get disrespected by the fans, which she does not deserve.
Let's be honest. She'd be hated by the fans because she's the only woman in this boy band, which is not fair. And also the fact that all of these Tumblr and Twitter people who we love and they're very supportive of the band, but they keep shipping Frankenstein and the Mummy because they think that they're really good together. But honestly, it's kind of rude to be shipping real life people.
It is
who are just here to bring you music and happiness. And I don't think that we should be. The Bride deserves
more respect than this.
Yeah, she's great on the drums.
She's obviously the best vocalist.
She's best vocalist while on the drums, and she can also play a pretty good tune on the keyboard too.
Yeah. Anyway, trademark this idea because I'm gonna make a movie about this.
It's a good like Nick. It's like the Nick version of Descendants.
It's also basically what the Beetlejuice show in Universal was. Just don't tell anybody.
Oh.
Shh.
All right.
The Beetlejuice one didn't have the mummy in it, so.
This has been our episode about boy bands and monsters mashup. Thank you so much for listening.
Monster mash, if you will.
The monster mashup, if you will. This has been The Great American Scream. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rate and review. If you're on iTunes, if you're on Spotify, you can follow the podcast and share it. There's a nice little share button that makes a pretty post on social media. As I said at the beginning of the episode, we have launched our Patreon. Please check it out at patreon.com/greatscreampod. It is super exciting that we have it, and we're hoping to see some of you there. Giving whatever support you can, any amount helps. And we have super cool perks, everything from early episode releases to voting on new episode topics and monthly movie live streams where Adam makes me watch scary movies.
Woohoo.
Adam, can you pimp our social medias?
Yes, you can check us out on Facebook at The Great American Scream or on Twitter and Instagram at Great Scream Pod. Let us know your favorite Frankenstein movies or your favorite Universal Classic Monster or who you think should front the Universal Classic Monsters band. You can tweet at us or post using the hashtag TGAS and let us know if there is something you want to hear about on the show because your suggestion may become the subject of a future episode.
Yes. A special thank you goes out to Michael Segudo, who does the intro for the podcast, as well as Stevie Viola, who does the intro and outro music. You can find him on Twitter. Also, if you have not already, please go and check out Casper Oliver's wonderful podcast, Jar of Rebuke. It is available wherever you get your podcasts. It's very good. We're probably going to play a trailer for it right now.
Have you ever wondered what wanders the fields at night? Or have you seen lights out in the woods that you know are not lightning bugs, or deer with just a few too many eyes? Well, all of these things are commonplace within the farm town of Witchton. Jar of Rebuke is a Midwestern Gothic horror comedy audio drama run by a queer-heavy cast and crew. Delve into the cornfields, explore the woods by the river, and make sure you bring your favorite dish to the local potluck, because Witchton is full of many fine folks for you to meet, creatures for you to encounter, and many mysteries for you to solve. The creatures and hauntings within Jar of Rebuke are all based on real lore and legends from the Midwestern United States, from the black-eyed children to the knot deer to the Michigan melon heads. Follow Dr. Jared Hell's audio journal and his run-ins with these various creatures while trying to remember his forgotten past. With the voices of myself, Casper Oliver, as well as Vanessa Rosengrant, Ashley Kraft, Cecil Fox, and guests like Jason LaRock, Misha Bakshi, and Conrad Mishuk, as well as many, many more, providing their talents to flesh out the world of Witchton, the townsfolk within, and even the supernatural creatures themselves. Compared by listeners to things like Welcome to Night Vale, SCPs, the Magnus Archives, and Tanis. If those things, but with a Midwestern Gothic twist, seem up your alley, be sure to tune in on every 7th and 21st on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcast fix for new episodes of Jar of Rebuke.
Again, thank you guys so much for listening. I have been Devin Wright.
I have an Adam O'Connell.
And hopefully you have been spooked.
Yeah, hey, boy band, if you're out there, well, singing group, Bride, I'm so sorry. But if you're out there, I'll manage you. I'm not doing anything right now.
Oh yeah, we'll be groupies. We'll do whatever.
Yeah.
You guys need boxes to be carried around? We got you.
Yeah.